for my Halloween A-frame meetup, which unfortunately overlaps with your class. So that wasn't on purpose. I'm sorry about that. But it's all right because I'm going to show you a preview of it. How about that? So meetup A-frame New York City. I suggest you all can join me on that. It's going to be recorded anyways. But what I'm going to do here, the plan of it, is to create an immersive pumpkin chunkin competition of 2020. If you do not know what pumpkin chucking or pumpkin chunkin, how the Midwesterner people talk about it, what is it? It is a challenge it came from Europe, but it's big. It's basically people building contraptions to shoot pumpkins as far as possible with like hydraulic, like pneumatic cannons and trebuchets and centrifugal like catapults and slingshots. So I thought it was fantastic. It's pumpkin season, why not? And I think the last 2 years I did a lot of Halloween and zombies and witches, and this time it's all about the pumpkin. Yeah. So we see orange, we want to smash it. So the idea here is that I have a contraption. I have like a component I'm building, and the workshop will be consistent in like people building their cannons with A-frame primitives. And the exercise in this workshop is to like use A-frame primitives in a creative way to design the steampunk cannon or the vintage battle tank or whatever kind of futuristic laser cannon kind of contraption that then will be your showpiece of how you want to shoot the pumpkin. And now I'm going to show you the actual component behind the projectile. And that is called glitch projectile demo. And yeah, so, and that's also ammo. No, that's actually Canon.js physics. So let me just open that real quick. Okay, so we did do that. I don't have to go through this right now. So let me open that in a new window. So Rock, this will help you as well because I have an interface here with buttons and you're gonna be happy about that. Because then you can do, it actually works with rollover with the mouse. And the cool part about it is actually keyboard accessible. So you can do tab and you can move around on the VR scene with the keyboard and you can rotate that. So the gray box that you see here is the launcher. That, I mean, it's going to be hidden, and the launcher will be part of the cannon that people will build. So people that will build the visual representation of the pumpkin chucker, and this is going to be an underlying component that you'll be attaching to it. So you'll have an interface where you can rotate and move the cannon. The blue line that you're going to see is actually the vector that kind of shows you the intensity and strength and rotation and position of where the pumpkin is supposed to be flying. So then you can actually press launch and then you really throw the pumpkin, right? Make sense? And then another part of the challenge next week will be to figure out an angle to throw the pumpkin the furthest away, like because it's a distance challenge, but also there's going to be a scary scarecrow somewhere on the end of the field that you can actually hit and get extra points. So that's the idea. And so the pumpkin itself, when it hits the ground, actually triggers a callback function. I'm going to be hiding that pumpkin and make it a splat visual, like a decal kind of splat thing, and then I'll showcase the distance maybe in a modal and a pop-up. It's like, ooh, you did 10 meters or 50 meters or whatever. Right? So that's the idea behind this. So makes sense?
how do you calculate the the force? Just by like attributes?
Yeah. So I can I can show you how the code looks, and I think that's going to be a little bit of a deep dive into this, and that's totally cool. Yeah. So I do have a so I have the launcher, that's the box, and I have a force vector. The force vector is a line element that goes from 0 to 0 or whatever the end is. And I have two objects that are two spheres attached to the beginning and the end of the line, because I need to know where the initial point is and where the target point is, right? So these are two objects that have in-world positions, right? Like these two spheres have a distinctive position at any given point in the entire world of this scene. And I can extract those by referencing the ID force vector end and start inside of that launcher. The launcher is the one, the box, the gray box that I'm going to rotate, move up, move down, move in two different angles, right? And the force, the line, the force vector is a visual representation. The actual important part is the point of the vector end and the vector start in order to calculate the proportion, the propulsion, the pulsation, whatever. Now, I do have a projectile, which is my pumpkin, and that's one of those examples where I go crazy with entities to basically create the shape of a pumpkin. You know, there's no fanciness there. It's just a pumpkin, right? There's no code. There's no kind of functionality there. It's just a visual pumpkin. So I basically slice spheres together to make them look like pumpkins, whatever. So
you made that pumpkin out of primitives?
Yes.
So Roland, you're telling us you made this model without modeling? Yes.
That's the whole point of my meetup, because I want people to create rocket launching things without building it in Glitch, in Blender. You don't need Blender. All of my examples, everything that I always build is A-frame primitives. I don't like 3D programs. I want to use A-frame primitives. And that's like, so if you look at an example, this entire thing is A-frame primitives. The entire city, the train, everything, right? And you can see that here. So you can see all the models. This is the church, is this. Entity, cylinder, cone, circle, yeah? The train. It's like there's a cylinder and so on. You can actually look at it on Glitch. You can look around, you can see. And then if I go inside of it, you can look. And I can say, oh, yeah, boom. Yep, A-frame primitives, right? You don't need a 3D modeling background in order to build stuff in AR and VR or AR, whatever, in A-frame. So I'm sharing all these models here, and I'm you guys can copy and paste, play with it, you know. Sorry, what?
Do you just load it? Like, can you like make the whole thing in a separate file, and then like, is there a way to load it as and not
yes
on things?
Yeah, so that is a nightmare to sift through. Absolutely. Usually, when I go really crazy about this, I create components that create those things. So I have one example, and I don't want to go too much down rabbit holes, but I submitted once wait a second, which one is it? Here. So I made a game which is based on the 1984 Gorilla Bus like basic game where you basically throw bananas at a monkey, throws bananas in like in the city. So so the monkey's down here, so you can actually toggle the view, and you can see that monkey. 1 second. So the city is actually created with code. Yeah. So, and the monkey itself is also a set of A-frame primitives, right? But it's also generated with JavaScript. Like all these entities are basically like created with JavaScript. The entire like city and everything is JavaScript. I don't place all these objects. They change every single time when I reload the scene. Different heights of buildings, different setups, different colors, different positions. The monkey is maybe at this building or this building or this building. So it is a shuffling effect because I render it out every single time I launch the scene. So and you can do that with components. So you can see here in the source, the HTML file. It's relatively simple. Look, right? There's a gorilla function here, and the camera attached to the gorilla, and another camera here because you want to change positions of cameras. But that gorilla component, or the arena component, same thing. This is the entire city, right? This is a gorilla, this is a gorilla. So if I go in here and go into my JavaScript files, oh, is that compression? No, it's not. So that's the trajectory launch. This is the arena. So in the arena initiate, then I calculate the width and depth. Then I say, hey, set, like create the plane, the sky model. And then I do a arena depth loop and arena width loop. And then I place buildings, boxes based on random height and based, see here, there's a random kind of thing going on every single time. A new one is different height, like in a variation. And then I add it like a pen child, building, 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 building. It's all code. There's the banana. It's also a different arcs. It's also a frame primitive banana. And there's the gorilla. There's the body parts. And then I have movable pieces like the arms that they can dance and they can throw. And you know, I can trigger things inside of it. So yeah. So like yeah, you don't have to make your HTML DOM insane. That's what basically long story short. And all this is also on GitHub. You can copy paste, look at it. I'm not a genius engineer developer. Most of this stuff is really amateur hour code, but it works, and that's what counts, right? At least for me. So yeah, so the pumpkin is complex, but I liked it, and maybe I'm gonna turn it into a component. Maybe I just turn it into a ball and have then textures with depth maps and different kind of like displacement maps to kind of bring in the shape of the pumpkin. That's another option, right? You can do textures on map texture. You can do bump maps and stuff on these 3D objects as well. No, not texture. Oh God, I can't type anymore. Texture.
So if we were gonna do the material on the basic objects, but can we reshade it to our imported objects, or we cannot? Can we only like?
So yeah, so yeah, you can do yeah, so you can do UV mapping on objects, but if you want to import a complex like a low poly 3D model, you do have to do the mapping, the MTL mapping, whatever mapping you do, UV mapping. You have to do it in the 3D program, and then you have to import it. Yeah, so I mean, you can do OBJ files. They allow you to like import like material files.
So do we have to like export the material separately and then import it to A-frame? Is that how it's done?
Yeah. So like okay. So if you want a 3D model that has a depth map, an HDR map, a reflection map, all this stuff, my suggestion is make all the 3D edits in Blender, map it in Blender, export it like with without any light sources, just with normal default lighting, right? Keep it all default, and then turn it into a GLB file and bring it into A-frame. That's the simplest thing. If you have a sphere and you want to map the world map on it, you can do something like I did. Wait a second. Showing too many links. Meetup. Oh gosh. There. So I have an example here with the spacewalk, where this is the world map, and it actually has several different kind of layers. So this object, as an example, is an OBJ file, right? With different kind of, it's not perfect, but it works for what it is.
Is that a really dense model? A really high poly?
It's no, like I tried to do some kind of, but you see how like sometimes it really messes up the texture.
Oh, it's a bump map on it. Is that what
yeah,
you're
yeah.
showing
So
us?
it's a yeah.
Okay.
So
and it looks higher def that way.
Yeah. So you can do so underlying of A-frame is 3JS. And it's really exciting to see examples in 3JS because you can see what kind of like possibilities there are or will be. I mean, obviously 3JS is always like ahead the curve, right? Due to performance and all this stuff. But let me see, there's a bunch of texture and shader examples here. And you can bring some of the stuff inside of A-frame because underlying of A-frame is 3JS. Sometimes I actually extend components to bring in stuff into A-frame from 3JS proper. But it's it's not always, it's a performance risk. For prototyping, it's not necessary. Let me see if I can find a cool thing. Yeah, so you see here the textures of this thing. So you can see how the refraction is from that kind of sky map, the boombox refraction. It's cool, right? Nope. Yeah, it's simple. Yeah, so you can look through this and see what kind of is down the line and is possible, which is pretty freaking amazing. These are shader examples, right? Glossiness and stuff. Performance is the key here. You want to make sure you build something that works well on multiple devices. Right, see, it's like some liquid stuff. This is another shader example. It's pretty cool. Yeah, okay, so here's bump map example. You see how the texture of the skin happens because of bump mapping. And this one is normal mapping, standard. Okay. Yeah.
You know, Roland, the bump map we did for our lab was pretty good. Do you want to describe that? It was a brick road, right? And Roland brought in the bump map of a brick road to make, even though it's a flat texture, right? Just an image, the bump map of the bricks make the bricks look more three-dimensional, gives them some depth.
Let me look for this. What was it? Oh wait,
I'm sure I
I
can
think,
find it.
yeah, I think I got it. 1 second, I got so many. It was the our lab start, our lab create 1.3, our lab create 3.3. If you find it first.
Okay, let's let them share. I started to go through some of their work, and some of the things are cool. We took a peek at rocks. Kyle, I have yours up now. Let's review your all's work, and then we'll loop back to a bump map. Who's ready to share? Alien,
right,
you were
so let me
messaging
close
me
that.
that you had some work, right? Everybody should have work by this point, because homework's due.
I have a question. So can we build two scenes inside one HTML, or do we have to like separate them?
Two different pages, but then you can link.
You mean-
Roland, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, a scene is in each HTML file has its own a scene. You cannot have multiple a scenes in one HTML file.
Okay, so in order to
Yet.
put together, it's like a link in the
Yes, it's a
just
there's a portal component in A-Frame where you can link scenes between each other, and that makes it easier. So you basically jump from HTML file to HTML file without realizing it's just in the address changes, but you go from VR to VR. You know, that's a and I've seen a bunch of very cool interpretations of it, like some kind of like look into, like, you basically have a window into the next scene, which is basically a 360 screenshot of the next scene that you can look into without going into it. But then when you cross the door, then you jump into the next scene.
like a portal.
Yeah.
Exactly. Roland, is the portal component working? Have you tried it recently in the Quest? Because I remember last time we just used a link or instead of a portal. Or we didn't use the link primitive. We used the link attribute or the link component.
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
But I've seen on Twitter a bunch of things, but
yeah, some of those are more advanced. We'll give it a try now. Vesper, we already took a peek at yours. Do you want to show us your two scenes, and then we'll give you some code to link them to each other?
Yeah, sure.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Share
Aileen, you're up next, and then Kyle, and then somebody who hasn't shared in a while.
So this is the entrance scene, the launch scene. I was thinking about the portal thing before, because that's what you said, you link two scenes together. I want to put a portal here, like a door, and then the cursor it can point to one of the portal, and then it goes into the greenhouse. How do I change it? Oh, by the way, can we customize the cursor, or is it just like a default thing, the ring shape?
yes. So if you are you planning on building this for cardboard, for desktop, or for VR headset?
I don't know. I mean, I don't have a VR headset, so
You have to understand how to design for VR. Sorry to just interject, but you should design for whatever platforms you have, right? You should design for everyone, right? You're going to design for something that you can experience it on, like the examples Roland's showing us, right? You could experience those at different levels on different devices. If you don't have a headset, you're not designing for hands, but you should still design for a head-mounted display.
okay. So what I was thinking is, so the camera, I mean, like it stands for the for the user, and you can like just move around in this space, and you can just grab anything, and then just like do it, and then there's like a description showing up, but I think it disappeared, the text. But yeah, that's what I thought. So it has to be linked through the it has to be linked to the launch scene to go into this room through the portal. Can we do that, or is it? Can we just like using one of the object that you see before to as the portal?
anything can be a link.
Anything can be.
So yes, the question is, you know, what object from your first scene links to your second, and then what object from your second scene links back to your first,
Oh,
whether it's 2D UI or a 3D object. You could even make things that are links that you put on your head or that you eat or bring to your face in VR. For our extensibility, to work from mobile to web and then to desktop, or then to headset rather, make it based on the Fuse cursor. Your cursor can be anything you want it to be, right? It could be the cylinder, right? Right now we have a circle, or it could be a diamond, whatever it is.
I don't know how to change it, how to change the A cursor, but yeah, so we can customize it. So this thing here, it goes back to the first scene, to the launch scene. The bottle here, it goes to the greenhouse scene. Yeah, I put an arrow here. I was thinking, is there some way to like just go, let's just follow the arrow and then just go into that thing, but it doesn't seem like it's possible, right? It's like a.
If what could follow what? Sorry.
I mean the user. Can we just like zoom in? It kind of just walks into that thing, like walking into a door, or we cannot do that.
It's a good idea. So you'll see in a lot of VR, when you teleport, it'll really move your camera forward. I think when we speak about affordances, you know, we're not looking up and then down. The arrow is great if the link is below us, like a sewer cap, right? Then you might want an arrow that points down. In this case, you know, how do you differentiate the potion from the plant? It doesn't necessarily mean you need an arrow going to the left, because that feels like it's going back. Maybe one of these is elevated or highlighted, right? Roland showed some.
Change the color. It just highlighted, glows.
Change the color or a light, right? A spotlight shining up or a spotlight shining down. Roland, what are your thoughts on this experience?
Yeah, so like I'm observing this, you're building a very beautiful and rich experience with a lot of little details, a lot of things, objects. Now, the risk is that you need to be very, very clear on how you communicate with what things you can actually interact and which ones you cannot. And that kind of interaction has to be standardized across all your experiences, right? So if you want to let's say you hover over the brew area, then you can have like maybe a ring or a sheen or like some kind of effect that says, now you can do something in that area, and then you click on it, and then you can maybe bring it a little bit of slide of an animation into it. So there's like a hover state or like a look at state, and then a trigger state. So that's very important, because now, like since Sam said, you can do anything with anything. Like, it's going to be really confusing for people that some things do something and some things don't do anything. It actually could be quite frustrating for people to see, oh, I know I can touch that bottle or pick up that bottle and then go into brew, and then you have other bottles and I want to touch those now and nothing happens. So you have to be very clear about communicating, like if things are interactable, make sure that they're really obviously interactable, so that people don't, you know, they don't know the scene, they don't know anything about it, they come in there and all of a sudden you can't make them, things will get lost, things will just not be discovered. And that's sad, because all the time that you spend on that, right? Make sure that it's really obviously clear.
Sure. Okay. I have a question. So inside a scene, can we move around, or we are just like in one place forever? We can just
yeah. So
I mean, like, I'm just like glued to the A.
So 3DOF versus 6DOF, right? You learned that part.
What is that?
Yeah.
3DOF. Yeah.
3 degrees
So you
of
have.
freedom, you can look. 3 more you can move.
We can move.
Go ahead, Roland.
Yeah, so I don't know, can you use your cursors or WASD keys right now?
No.
Okay, so then you did not add to your camera the WASD controls. Can you go on your HTML file? Okay, so let me see. Where's your camera in the scene? Oh, there it is. Okay, look controls. Okay, line 46. Camera, just add between camera and look controls or after look controls, add WASD controls. WASD minus controls. Okay, now you can navigate back and forth with the cursor.
No, I can't. Nope. I don't think I can grab it. I mean, like I can.
You're on the index minus app HTML, not on the index launch, are you?
It is launch. It is the launch.
Okay.
Page.
Yeah,
Okay.
Roland, we went over this. You know, it might be WASD controls or walk controls.
Oh, there's an S missing on controls. Controls. Yeah, now it works.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it moves.
Great.
All right. Thank you.
So now you have to be aware of the fact that because you can change perspective, if you have panels of text and they always should look at you because you want to read it.
Yeah.
Like if you have let's tooltips or something, there's something called the look at component. The look at component orients the plane towards the camera of the user. So if you look, you Google the word look at component A-frame, and then you'll see the documentation. Yeah. Well, there's definitely, yeah. So, no, look at component.
The first one?
Yeah, sounds good. And then there's a GitHub repo connected there. This is the NPM library. On the right is GitHub. The homepage.
This one?
Down. Yep.
Yep.
Oh, all right.
It's not here.
Well, you know, sometimes, but you can see in the syntax. No, look controls is what you have. Maybe in the search here you can look at. Maybe it's already integrated. Look at. I think you have to write it together. Look at together.
Like that, or just
yeah, that. Well, A-frame. I can send the link in the chat, but the idea is there that things basically face the user. Readability is key here, right? You're already struggling with the resolution on the devices. So what you make sure is that if you have readable text, it's going to be flat in front of your eyes to be able to read it at any given point. And that's why planes readjusting the position to make it readable for you is important based on the position of you in the space. If you're in a 3DOF experience, you always have the same angle, so that's easier. But if you're 6DOF running around, looking up, down, and move your head around, then it's important for things that might be like interfaces or buttons that they are going to see, that you have direct access to it. Readability, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna look for that component and then.
Roland is a great example on that. Vesper, I'm glad you have the WASD controls enabled. That's something we went over last class. While Roland pulls that up, Vesper, can you search for something for us for our first scene? Our first scene can be 3DOF where you can look around. Our second scene you designed to be something you can walk around, right? So we're all on the same page there. You can make your first scene something you can walk around as well. Your layout makes it look very much like the entry scene, right? Like, do you want to go to chapter 1 or do you want to go to chapter 2? For your potion, if you Google on A-frame docs link, L-I-N-K,
okay.
You're going to add, yeah, L-I-N-K, you're going to add an attribute.
Link?
Oh, yeah, link, the top one.
Oh.
Yeah, not this primitive. Don't add a link, but yep. this guy, if you scroll
Oh.
down,
Portal thing.
yeah, the portal is really whack. So if you scroll down, do you see how that one just says a entity? A entity link equals href index.html? Yes, right there. So you're going to type the same thing. Link equals href scene2.html. And you don't need that whole thing. You just need the link component. So if find us the potion bottle.
But wait.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know how to like, responsibly scale it down. Sometimes it's like too long. I can't see it. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Go under your project name,
okay.
and then you can hit wrap text. Click greenhouse.
Greenhouse. Oh, wrap text.
Yeah, wrap text, right? And then you're gonna want to end your link component in quote. So link equals href quotation href colon index dash app HTML end quote. So you want to end quote after the semicolon. Oh yeah, you don't need the rest of that
Yeah, I mean,
stuff.
like that.
Yeah, but you want to put the link component from the word link to the end of the quotation. You want to put that inside of your bottle.
Oh, okay, I got it. Yeah, I know. Okay, let's just like move this thing to the bottle. Where's my bottle? Is my bottle?
Yeah, you're gonna want to put that
yeah,
in the same entity.
So again, I'm gonna suggest again that you don't want to actually attach any components and stuff to GLTF models. Always wrap them in entities, right? Wrap this entire thing in an entity and then attach components to that, because it's always better to have like your 3D model untouched and just live its life and have a wrapper around it. Because as soon as you have collision control, so like ray casting on an object that is not a simple primitive, then it gets really complicated, right? Because the shape of the 3D object that's rotating, then you sometimes you're gonna be able to hit it, sometimes you don't. Because it actually, the GLTF model is truly replacing the entity, and you want to have a simple box around it to make the intersection of your raycaster super simple. So wrap it inside of an entity.
So we make an A box and somehow we transmute.
No, just an entity, a entity, just a container.
And
yeah, so give that one an ID so we can actually see it in the asset tree. So just call that link to inside of the entity quote, right? The bracket.
Yeah, it is close. It's just like on the next.
No, like the
inside of first. Okay, yeah, like that.
Yeah, so give that a name. Like this is the
one
brew button or whatever it is. Well, you have to put in quotes.
Oh, okay, quote. Double quote.
Yeah, double quotes and quote, but you have to make consistent. So now we have brew portal, and inside of that brew portal, you nest your GLTF model. Like you bring in the GLTF bottle. Where is that one?
Is this one?
Yes, so bring that entire thing inside of the entity over there. No, the entire entity, everything with the animation. And you, yeah,
okay,
that thing.
And then bring it here?
No, inside of the wrapper, right? Yeah, between the two entity, open and close.
So we can just wrap one entity with another entity? Yeah.
Yes.
It's getting a little
nesting it.
Like, I don't know, brighter. See, the color changes a little bit. But we can make it like transparent, like lower opacity to like.
Let me figure out what's going on. Why is the opacity changed?
You have two entities. You copied.
Yeah, it's like overlap.
ID twice.
Yes, so you're on top of each other. They're perfect clones on top of each other right now. You can comment the other one out, the old one. If you go up and then just comment it out. Right now you have two IDs that are exactly the same as well. Yeah, just boom. So yeah, so let me look. ID brew portal, and then you have a ID left. Okay, so so the scaling I understand. The positioning I'm wondering, is that positioning world positioning, or is that positioning just because of the brew bottle?
You mean the user's position or the bottle position?
Yeah, so okay, now that you have an entity wrapper around it, I want to can you add a geometry to that entity? So you can do next to brew portal and end quote, you type in space geometry equals. No, not space, just geometry, please. Equals primitive colon box, no, primitive. Is it?
Oh, PRAI. TI. Okay. Primitive.
Colon box. Okay. Okay. So now you basically made it an A box. That's the identical description. Okay. And now if you look in your scene, that box is going to be 0, 0 on your on the middle of your scene, right?
Can we see it in?
Yes, you can. There you go. So what you want to do is place the bottle inside of that box. Make that box smaller, so you can say primitive box width, like width, height, and depth. No, inside of the quote. So primitive semicolon.
Primitive box.
Semicolon and semicolon. I don't see a semicolon. Is there a semicolon?
What it?
No, a semicolon. Like, that's you have primitive colon box semicolon. That's a comma and the point above a comma. How do you call that? Semicolon?
Okay. This thing.
No, that's
so
brackets.
If you look on line 42, you see after the number 35 or after rotation, right? You see rotation, semicolon. There you go.
Yeah, so basically geometry and then the variables inside of it is basically the same as a box with every single width, height, depth. But this is the actual long form of how to create primitives in A-frame. So a box with height, color is basically a short code for exactly that. So now you write in this width.
Like container? So it acts like a container to contain, just like an invisible button for the target.
Yeah, so I want to shape it in the right size so we know that we have something to click on. Okay. So now you kind write no, scale is its own component. We're in the geometry component right now. The geometry component gets box as primitive, then it gets width, colon, and then we say colon and semicolon, similar to the box kind of thing, right? So width, and then we make it 0.5, that's half a meter. A semicolon, height, also 0.5. Semicolon, and then depth, 0.25. So you have like a flatter kind of square box, right? Okay, so if you look in the scene now, so you can see there's almost, okay, wait a second, what did we miss up?
We missed a semicolon. Semicolon next to height.
The height does not have a semicolon, so it defaults back to 1 if it doesn't understand it. So now it's fine. So you have a button panel kind of style thing there now, if you look down. And then you basically place your bottle inside of that, and then you place that box. See, this would be like the surface you want to click, right? Does it make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's much easier for you to click on that box instead of trying to hit a piece of that bottle, which is animated and floating around, right? Makes sense?
Yeah, sure.
So what you're gonna do is I don't know what you deleted stuff.
No, I was trying to place the container. I mean the box to here, to the exact same position as the bottle.
So chances are you're not going to be happy with it because you're using a GLTF or GLB file. It probably is not centered. So we have the same issue as we had before. But let's try it. Let's copy the position information. No, you can put it in the quotes. That's an own component. The position, it's an own component, so it goes after the quote.
Here?
No, after the quote inside of the bracket, the caret. No?
Here?
Yes, there.
Here?
Space. Yes. Space. And then position.
Oh, it lost the.
Look, it's there, right? Yes. Cool.
It's
Now, obviously, your bottle is obviously shifted away. It's because it's a relative position, right? So what you want to do is get rid of the position information in your bottle. No, in the bottle, the position information goes to default to 0.
Just delete it or just turn all of them into 0?
Well, you can turn it into 0. We might have to edit it. Okay, so what you can do, so now it's inside of it. Yep, there's overlap, right?
Yeah.
That's cool. So you can increase the size of the box from 0.5 to 0.75. Width and height. Depth is fine. And then you can, yep, height as well. So it's bigger. So it's a bigger click target now, right?
Why is it changing?
So, oh, because we didn't define a color, so it randomly picks a color. So that would be material. So what you want to do is make a new component next to it that's called material. No, material, write it out. Equals quotes, and then wireframe true. Colon true. So that's just for testing. So now it's a wireframe. So you can see it, right? Okay, so you can position it correctly and make everything happy. But in the end, then you'll just do color, like colon, then color, pick white or something. No, color is also the material part.
Oh.
That is the tricky part, yeah. Color is part of material. So you do semicolon, color, colon, and then you can say white or a hex color, however you want it.
Hex color?
Yeah, you can now like hashtag 333 or FFF.
But which one is like a very translucent one?
That's black. No, there's no transparency there. The colors are all opaque unless you define opacity, which you'll do next.
Oh, okay.
So white is good. Then you do column, semicolon, I mean, and then opacity, and then 0.1 or something. Opacity 0.1. Okay, so now it's transparent, but the wireframe is still true. So if the wireframe is a wireframe, then you barely see it. But you can turn wireframe false, and then you can see the white thing. Yeah. So you can see it like this.
Turn it down a little bit.
Oh, yeah, but we want to make this so you can actually see it.
Oh, okay.
Because you want to position it correctly and you want to make sure the hit target works, right? So because now you want to add the link information, the link to that brew portal ID, right?
I was like, where is it again? I'm lost.
So at that time, I usually just make line breaks on this kind of stuff because it's getting really hard to read. So you can actually do line breaks on the syntax of the HTML element, right? So you can bring down geometry. So let's go before geometry and press enter. Then go to position, press enter.
Oops.
And then to material, enter. And then, okay, so and then you make a new line. Make sure you bring the thing down, and then you can do link.
Here, a new line? Or...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 2 line, and then you, so what you see here, the white things are basically components that you attach to an entity, and you can add more entities to that, and it's basically the principle of the entity component system. You have an empty shell, which is an entity, and then you assign things and behavior to it, and you can add more and more and more to it. Just like the dynamic body in the physics system, you add a component to it, and therefore it will behave in a certain way, right? Similar to an animation, similar to a scaling or position, or the additional components you want to attach to objects. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Sam, you can take over. I'm not gonna run your class. Is he still there?
Cool. Thank you, Roland. Thank you for walking us through that. I think this is a good start. Hey, quick question. Can multiple people share their screen at once? Vesper, keep sharing. Keep sharing and let me share my screen real quick. Everybody, can you see 2 screens at once, or do you just see 1 screen?
I just see 1 screen.
Just see mine? Okay. All right, cool. Well, a couple things I want to show you today, and I'm glad we have Roland here. Physics is the big one, right? And so many types of physics. Thank you, Roland. I was unaware of Canon and ammo, so super happy to see that. Also taking a look back, this is some of the work that Roland and I did last year or 2 years ago, maybe. And I showed you this one before. It was last year. This is the one with the GIF. The
I don't see it. We don't see it yet.
You don't see anything? Do you see my screen
at all?
No, we
don't. We see greenhouse still.
You see greenhouse?
Yes, this greenhouse is still sharing.
Oh, really? Okay. Let me share. Oh, I'm still sharing. Okay, yeah, Vesper, if you could pause sharing for a second.
Yeah, I already.
Or stop sharing. Thanks. Cool. So the invisible GIFs, the ever hard to achieve GIFs, here you can see the GIF shader there. First, we need to add links. So I think Vesper got to a good link that's in a bounding box, because the bounding box is what you have around objects, right? Like whether you're in the HoloLens or some games, if you play any games, you might notice that if you walk into enemies, you die, right? But sometimes if you go really slowly, you get close, but you die before you actually touch them. That's the bounding box, right? And Roland showed us that you can have a bounding box that's a box or a cylinder, or it's auto and is based around the poly of the object, which is computationally expensive. Let's do the simple method to first take a primitive, right? A primitive like the A-frame basic cylinder. And you can see I have this cylinder, and this cylinder links to scene 2. So within one project, I have 2 pages. I'm always leaving my first page as index.html. That way, whenever anyone goes to this URL of whatever startscene.glitch.me, it automatically loads the index.html. If I just type in /index.html, it's loading the same page, right? So index is your start scene, okay? Is because you can see here, I have index.html as this page. That's the first page, right? Now, the second scene I created by just duplicating this page, and then I renamed it scene 2, right? So you have multiple scenes. You could alternatively have your scenes, instead of multiple pages within the same domain or the same URL, you could have them as different projects. You could even create a link that opens up like, Grubhub or Uber, right? Because you might be wearing AR glasses and you might look at your calendar and then a little box appears that says get Uber, and then you look at that and that orders you an Uber on uber.com, right? So this is a spatial wireframe, right? This is my globe with the world rotating around it. Maybe this blue cube is my calendar, and then above it becomes something that says order Uber. I click SVA logo and it takes me to Uber, right? Or I have this yellow sphere or this yellow cylinder, right? And that yellow cylinder is going to take me to the second scene, scene 2. Over here, I have scene-2.html, okay? So this is slightly different because in scene 2, I just hid the rest of that diorama. Does everyone have multiple scenes in a glitch project? Raise your hand if you do. Okay, so half of us do, most of us do. Follow me and code along so that I know you understand, okay? I'm gonna show you what we're gonna create first. So if I just change this URL to index.html, this loads index.html for me, okay? Now I'm going to, whoops, excuse me. Now I'm going to look at, I think something's wrong with my camera. I'm gonna look at that second cylinder, and then it jumps me there. I've made my window super large. All right. So from the first scene, index.html, I have my camera. My camera has a cursor, right? I have my WASD control so I can walk around. I have a box in my camera. That's where you're asking if we can add other things into the camera. Yes, you can. I have a box and I have a fuse cursor. A cursor fuse equals true. So on this link to the second scene, I've applied link equals href scene2.html to this yellow cylinder. So when I look at the yellow cylinder or click on it, it loads that second scene. Does that make sense, everybody?
Yeah.
Good. I see some nods. Now code along with me because you need this to submit your homework. I'm going to change that moon, that orbiting thing, to be a link to google.com. So how do I find that? I know I have animation. This is the one animating. This is the satellite. Remember I said, oh, we're going to have the moon, satellite, the earth, right? So pick an object, a primitive object, right? Because you can make that object more transparent, a wireframe like Vesper did. So on this object, I'm going to add the link attribute, and I'm adding that because I just found it on aframe.io, right? Like Roland's first suggestion was Google it, right? So I'm going to the docs, and then in docs, I'm looking for link. I'm not picking the big link component because for the past couple of years, there have been some issues with that. So I'm not adding a dash link. I'm just adding within an entity, I'm adding the link equals href destination.html semicolon. So within this box, I'm going to say link equals href. I'm going to paste this because I'm going to copy this up here. So I'll code it for you guys live, by which I mean I just type it out. So this is going to be link equals quotation href colon, and this is going to be scene-2.html semicolon quotation. So now either of these entities, whether it's the cylinder or hopefully the satellite, will take me there. So if I click that satellite, if I wait till it comes around, click, click, no dice. Is that because it's parented? Refresh. let's try something simpler. Let's make
it works for me.
It works for you?
Yeah,
okay, maybe
just
because
have
it's
to point
moving.
the cursor right at it.
I'm not fast enough? Okay.
You have to
well,
point
it's
and click it.
it's a fuse trigger. It doesn't click.
Oh,
right?
so the fuse means that we need a specific amount of time for it to fuse. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think this way you could create a cool game. But what else could we do? We can just take this. We can make everything a link. Let's do that. Let's remove this link from the satellite and let's add it to, what's this box it's sitting on top of? Or that's sitting on top of let's add it to the sphere. So that purple sphere, material background, not the background, but this other sphere, let's add the link component to the sphere. So if you add the link component to the sphere, if you raycast, then we go to scene 2, okay? Now in scene 2, in my scene 2 code, I'm gonna do the same thing. And if you guys and girls wanna copy along, I'm gonna add here, where's our chat? In our chat. Has everybody gotten that, or has anybody gotten that?
No.
Nobody's gotten that? Okay. Here is, so you can follow along with me. I'm in scene 2, okay? Now, I'm just gonna create this again because I commented some of these things out, but here, I know this globe, right? Remember we said this is the globe set, and the globe set has this box, and it has this sphere, and the material has the background, right? So that's this sphere that I'm looking at right here. So let's go ahead and add a link to this. And I'll link back to my initial scene, right? So in my second scene, the one that's a game, maybe there are a bunch of things flying around that I have to swat or that I have to try and catch. I'll call this one link equals, link equals quotation href colon, and then go back to index.html. And that's going to point to the first page, the index of this website, right? Alternatively, you could take it to Google or wherever, right? And then this has reloaded the project because I have, under my scene, I have refresh app on changes. So if I click the sphere or the cylinder, that will take me to the second scene. And then by looking at this sphere, without having to click because it's on fuse, it takes me back to the first scene. So now if you're asking, how can I restart this scene? Well, we have this, the sphere and the cylinder take us to the second scene. For this cube on scene 1, I'm gonna have this reload the scene. So, or rather for this box, right? Which one is the box? The box is, it's this box here that is not giving a shadow, that's this color. I'm gonna add link equals, link, yeah, equals href colon, quotation rather, link equals quotation href colon index.html. So this is the same page, if I can spell HTML. This is the same page, right? I'm in my index, and this blue box is going to go to another page, but what page does it go to? It goes to the same page. It just reloads itself. So Rock had one that was pause, and he had another icon that was reload. If you want to reload the page you're on, just put the whatever portion of the name of this HTML document, right? Alternatively, we could have this take us to, you know, another thing like scene 2 or scene 3. Who is able to get these portions to traverse to another scene and back? Or questions? You got it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Kyle, you got it? Vesper, you got
Yes.
it, right?
I got it. It works.
Great. Cool. Who doesn't have it? Everybody's got it. All right. So you're going to see your scenes linked together in your next homework. All right. Now the
Do you want
The
to add some
Everhard.
hover effect or something?
I have a question actually, if I can share.
Yeah, Aileen, go ahead, share, and then we want to get to hover effects after GIFs. Go ahead, Aileen.
Sure.
Do you want to share your screen?
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
All right, do you see this? So I made like, I tried making this like beach party thing.
Cool.
And
are you using a vector font, or are you using as PNGs?
Oh, it's PNG. Yeah.
I'm gonna send you a font component that's much better than a text component, which will allow you to use materials for the stuff. So it's actually gonna be really sharp.
Also,
sorry, continue.
No, yeah, feel free to share and stop me. Like, also like remix this shader that I found on A-Frame. So if you have any like other references for shaders that are like nice 3D things to add instead of like using Blender, so I would love that. So I tried to make this like thing and then have like a bunch of dances, and then like, so if I point here, yeah. So I wanted to have like a hand, like two hands, and then like have them move. So the person, I don't know why it's loading forever, but, and then also like having the legs, so have these like color as well. So I want to basically move the left and the right hand, and then the person is kind of using that to follow along. So I don't know if to do that with physics or with just animations, if you have like any idea. Another cool thing would be to like really like go over the music and like really like maybe, I don't know, analyze the beats and stuff, and have it move according to the beats.
So did you know that there's actually a Beat Saber version out there for A-Frame already that is being shared? So you literally could build Beat Saber with whatever you want with components.
Okay.
So what I would say with the movement of hands, you definitely can build out the hand component, the hand controls component. What you want to do is probably have objects animate with the animation component, and then track the distance between the actual hand track component and the other component, and see if it maps. So you're doing the correct kind of movement, right? You can analyze the Y and X axis positions of your controllers, so that it doesn't matter if you're back and forth, because like the 6 stuff, it doesn't, like put your arm up in the air. It's like put arm up in the front of me or up behind me. It doesn't matter. It's up in the air. So the Y axis is the thing that you want to level. So you'll have like a time kind of like, if the hand controller is at Y level this, then check. If not, no, right? So you basically can write a script that loops through, and then you basically have to like do the motions the same way. That's what I would do in that case.
So you get,
but maybe,
or do you
sorry, what?
So do you get like points when you reach a certain level, or you're saying?
Sure. Yes, yeah, you could track that. The other thing it would, you just think about it like popping bubbles, like like things come up and you do this and this, and it's like the Beat Saber when it comes towards you. Maybe you're just like an environment that's close enough to you, so you don't have to like. So you basically like do the dance move slightly at a tilt forward, because you're gonna like, it's like whack-a-mole in the air, right? Like ding, 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 ding. Same thing. So however you want to visualize it, the functionalities, the core functionalities are the same, either interaction or either measuring world position in comparison to other world position. In A-Frame, you can even make a networked A-Frame experience and play with another person that then has 2 hands in the head that are tracked in space. So the person in VR space with you does a row of movements that then get tracked in a log. You can say, do the same movements as that person. So if the person left arm up, right arm to the left, and then it gets logged in a time, then you have a certain time to do the same movements. You have to mime that person, or so you basically kind of do an interaction with another person as a dance move kind of competition. So I mean, there's a lot of opportunities there. I think that's pretty brilliant. Let me send you the A-frame text component that I'm talking about. It's the A-frame Troika text component. It's based on 3JS Troika text, super powerful, beautiful. You can bring in any kind of TrueType fonts you want. And it's behaving much more friendly than the A-text component. What you want is live text in your scene, because you want to digitally change the title. You want to flip through some kind of albums. You want to read out the text as a text string. You don't want to exchange PNG files. It's going to be, PNG is going to be a massive amount of production on your side. You just want to keep it very low, low production level, and just very dynamic. As far as interface and buttons goes, I built the A-frame GUI component. I don't know if you have seen that one. It's maybe a little bit heavy to be used in your scene, but I would suggest maybe you look at the launcher component that I did. I created these boxes with Troika text in it. You can basically clone out the GUI text, the GUI button component from there, and then it will help you to like do hover effects and click effects and bring even. And I mean, I went crazy and have it also ARIA accessible for keyboard accessibility, which you don't really need, but I like to bring in even people that have assistive technology use VR stuff. So that's a current experiment I'm doing, but like it has all the things you need in order to make buttons, like really fancy buttons work. Like once you have there with the arrows, you can the arrows could be what do you call that? It's like it's an icon font. Why not, right? So you don't need to like reduce the amount of like artwork you need to create in order to do like readability and like stuff, and then focus on you can still bring in gradients and stuff and whatever you do. Like if you keep the things dynamic that change often, like score, text, stuff like that. So keep these containers as flexible as possible.
Okay.
All right.
If I don't have like a set yet, so what's a good way to like for the hands to have them like move? So should it just be like using the animation, or like physics would be good for like have like this?
I don't think physics would. Well, physics is very. I don't think physics is the right thing. I think animation is the best thing. You said you don't have a Quest, right?
No, but I might get one. So I was just wondering.
So what I would do to start, I would use the mouse cursor component, because that gives you a little bit more flexibility than having the Raycaster component with the headset. You're gonna get a neck injury if you don't trying to do this, right? But you know, like you could make a desktop version of it first, and then upgrade into progressively upgrade into like a hand tracking component. You can bring in mouse cursor click ability, very simple. And I can, if you look at
on that note, guys, real quick, Aileen, you should design yourself for scale, right? So that people can play, like Roland's talking about accessibility, they can play the game with their head, right? And then you can also code a version that shows animated hands, right, as instructions, and even code one that allows you to use your hands and then have a classmate who has a Quest try it out. That way you're showing that you can deploy to all devices and support all people. On that note, since we already took a look at, you know how to animate, right? Like you could get a model of the hands and show how to animate. Roland showed us how to bring our controllers or real hands in. On that note, Roland, can you show us how to hover and affect hover states?
Yes.
Great.
So there's different ways how you can do it. There's ways you can do it without code, and then there's ways you can do it with code. And I don't know if I'm going to be nice to you guys, so I'm going to be complex. Let's see. Obviously, I'm going to be nice, but okay. So I'm going to back to my example here. Okay. So let's say I want to make, when I hover over this box, I want to make sure it recognizes me hovering over it. Like I was talking to the other example, like you have this box, you want to make sure that you know that this is interactable. Therefore, when you hover over it, show me that you're interactable, right? So you can do a, so like interactions and controllers in A-frame. So they talk about here, this is event listeners in JavaScript and code. And then okay, so the camera A cursor, you know that one as well. But you can add events inside as components, right? So if you look at this box here, you can set an event. So you have to add that component. It's an event component into your scene. So we are in the index right now. I'm adding this. This is the A-frame event set component. And then I'm looking at the blue box, which is, which one is it? I think that's this one. Is this it one? Maybe. We'll see in a second. And then we're going to add enter and leave functions. So the idea, the event set component means it adds a listener function to that component, and you can add as many different events as you want to that as a like you can extend. So event set is basically what it listens to. Then there's a double underscore, and then you can say whatever you want. This is made by me, right? I can say event set Macy's, whatever. It doesn't matter because this is a variable that I choose, right? And inside of it, I say the event that I want to listen to is when I enter with my mouse and then change the color to this. And the other one is, there's like, this is Bloomingdale's. Again, it doesn't matter. These are variables that make it contextualized for me, right? So it makes sense that they are called enter and leave because obviously I'm entering and I'm leaving, right? And then it changes the color back to the blue. So when I hover over it, the color turns to this color. And when I get out of it, the color turns to this color. So there's a color swap in the box. All right. So now that's one part, but it doesn't do anything. Why doesn't it do anything? Because I'm not actually telling it what mouse enter means and what mouse leaves means, because I don't have my camera cursor component built in. So I want to bring in a cursor here. And all of a sudden, if I refresh, now I can, you see this? Now it's a hover effect. Make sense? So I can do that, and that's the super simple way, right? I can do that with scale. So I say, oh, you know what? I want this to be bigger when I roll over. So I want this to go from 1.1.1.1 to like 1.2, 1.2, 1.2, and then go back to 1.1.1 because that is default. So now I refresh, and all of a sudden it goes bigger, right? Easy. Do we understand this this concept that event set is the triggering the component? Say to this box, I'm setting an event. I'm naming underscore underscore. I'm naming that event whatever I want it to be named because I want to, let's say, scale up, scale down. Macy's, Bloomingdale's, Kmart, who cares, right? It's a variable name I want because I want to make sure it's unique and it is clear, right? So I can add another one. So I can say, hey, mouse, like I'm entering and I say, do something, right? So in that case, I'm listening to a mouse click. And then I'm gonna say color red. So I added another event, listener, to my component. Now I'm running over this, and as soon as I click it, it doesn't happen. Why doesn't it happen? Hold on. Mouse, 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 enter, mouse, mouse, enter, mouse, click, mouse. 1 second. Need to refresh my brain. Mouse, enter, mouse, B. Mouse, stupid me. Mouse down. It's not mouse click, it's just click, by the way. So if I wanted this to happen, it's just click. Mouse click is nothing. It's mouse up, mouse down, that is like trigger and release, or click. Click is just a click, right? So in that case, click, boom, right? Works. And like be aware of the fact that this still, you can still add the link component to it that also listens to the click. It's not only getting read, but it's also going somewhere. And sometimes you don't even see the click because it goes at the same time as it turns red. So in that case, you know, like, so let's say I want to, in mouse down, I want this to scale up, and mouse up, I want it to go back to normal, and mouse enter, it goes red, and in mouse mouse leave, it goes back to the other color. Oops, it goes back to my other color. So now that we paid attention to what I did, the first one is if I click down on it, it does what when I click down on it?
It scales to something. Does anybody else know?
It scales up. And so as soon as I press down, it scales up. If I like mouse up, it then scales back to normal. And as soon as I mouse enter and exit is red, right? All right. Does it look like a valid interface interaction for you guys already? Is that something that will enrich and make your experiences absolutely gorgeous, brilliant, and amazing?
It is.
Awesome. And no code
It's
included,
nice.
right? Super simple, right? That's just the easy way to do that. Now, if you are Aline, you want to do some fancy stuff, right? And I'm going to show you how to do that. Sorry if I pronounce your name Aline, because my sister's name is Aline as well, and she's German just like me. So
that's actually how you're supposed to pronounce it.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, yeah. Then I'm glad that I did not butcher your name. Okay, so let's look at the thing that I was showing you with the. Let's look at my.
So we added an event set component, a custom component, or rather a custom script. Is that correct? It's both the custom script and component, right?
Yeah. So the script that you add to the header is allowing it's creating a component every single time you add event set to, like, this is the easiest way to add interaction into A-frame, right? Without creating JavaScript code. This is basically just defining new components as you fly away. Like, it's like the animation component. It's like animation underscore underscore loop, animation underscore underscore dance. It's like loop and dance happen at the same time, right? So, or it listens to certain things, or it gets triggered by something, right? So, so this one can emit, can listen to, can emit certain things as well, right? But let's look at my GUI button component, right? So this is a component called GUI button. I have the GUI button in here. Yeah, so there's a user interface start. This is my button. So I have a button component here that I'm attaching. And inside of that button component, I have a click action, and that's the name of the function that's gonna do trigger. And I have a label, which is called rotate up. And that's it. And then there's position and scale attached to it. But this is my button. So this is in A-frame, my button that I'm attaching. And then if you look at it in the scene, you can see all these buttons down here. These are all of those, like this one is the rotate up. That's this button. So you can see there's a hover effect, and you can press it, and it actually moves the box up. You can see it slowly moving up, right? Or to right, it moves to the right, right? So it actually triggers functions. There's button down, button left, and right. So I have the functions that actually do the motion and moving of this object, this launcher. So in the script on the bottom of my HTML file. So in the script file here, I say there's a launcher, which is get element by ID, which is the box launcher. That's the gray box with the transparency on it. This one here, box, opacity 50%, and this gray, that's the box. It's called launcher. And that one is defined here as a variable launcher. And then I'm attaching to the window DOM element, which is the scene, which is the HTML element, a function called launch button action. And I have a function called up button action, down button action, right? You remember those? Those are the ones that yes. I name click action, and then down button action does that. Whenever you hear down button action happening on the DOM, fire the function. If the rotation is bigger than the minimum rotation 0, right, that I define, so here's a variable that I define, and the X rotation is the rotation I'm setting. So I'm incrementing or decrementing the rotation by 1. That's minus minus. So I'm setting the attribute of rotation to 1 less than last time space plus the Y rotation that gets modified with the left button, the right button. So it's basically incrementing and decrementing numbers here. And these are the min max values of left, right, up, down. And that's it. So that's all it is. With this code, I'm basically moving this box left and right and up and down with these 4 buttons, because I'm triggering these 4 functions here that I define in my component, the GUI component, okay? So that's all I need for this. But if I look into the GUI component, I can explain to you what it actually does under the hood, which is maybe a little complicated, but maybe not. So I'm registering a component called GUI button. There's a schema. A schema means you can add variables to things to make this component more yours, less default, right? I do have an on click event. So if I would say on hover, then it would, or on mouse enter, then the button would trigger on mouse enter, right? So the on event here is click on default. So you have to click it. So yeah, so it's listening to a click event, and I'm actually, this is a schema where basically I describe all these are the ingredients of my recipe, and these are the default ingredients that I put in, but label doesn't have a default ingredient because there's no label. So I have to actually put a string in order to have it read out as text. Yeah. So I initiate the button. The first thing that happens, initiate function, it creates the button. It reads out the data from what comes in here, the default, and whatever gets delivered through the parameters in the component, right? We have in here, these are the parameters, click action, label. I can bring in the on here and stuff like that, right? So all these are possible things I can do. And then I said this element, okay, the GUI component is a geometry primitive box with width, height, and depth. Like we shown before, the component is described with a geometry. I have a material that I set to this. And then I have a border, which is the container around it. So it's two boxes, right? It's another box here. It's a little bit wider than this one, and it's a little bit higher than this one. So it gives you like an outline, like a border. And then I append the border also. Like appending means like add this object to my element. So I have another box here. So I have original box and additional box, and then I have a text label. That's a variable name for an element called a text. And then I bring in the label, the stuff that I'm shipping in here when I define my GUI button. That's going to be delivered inside of this, and then it will be centered and white and positioned, and then added to my button. Now, this is how my button is set up. This is just how it's created. And then I'm creating all these events. So I'm listening to a mouse enter event, a mouse leave event, a focus event, a blur event, and a data on, which means a click event, right? Because I defined it as click up there. So focus and blur is just for keyword accessibility. It's just the thing that I'm doing for like assistive technology for blind people navigating the R space. So you don't have to, you can ignore that for now. But mouse enter, mouse leave, and click is the thing that interests me, right? So on mouse enter, set the material color as we define it up here with hover color, aka is 222. Or if I want the material color to change, I can change that in the index file. I can say here, hover color green, boom. And then it says the rotate left button will have a green color, right? Very simple. These are the schema parameters that can change in my component, okay? So let's go back.
Roland, that's awesome. We're gonna get to time soon, so I want to be respectful of whoever has other obligations, because I know we're across the globe. We still have some time, and then I want to get to gifts as well. But before we get to general questions, go ahead and cap off, because this is really interesting.
Yeah, so I'm capping off because this is just so on click. You set the material to an active color, and then this part here is basically translating whatever you bring in as a variable inside of the click action and translate it to a window function. So it triggers the thing that I was talking about in the footer of the page, where you listen to the window object and then trigger a button. So you can do all the fantastic things that you want to do in your scene in the footer of the page, and just have the button do its thing, and you don't have to think about the button again. All right, that's basically it.
And Roland, are you teaching more about this in your A-Frame meetup?
Yeah, I can teach about anything. The A-Frame meetups usually have a theme, the workshops. I am open to like talk about this stuff more in detail, and like whatever people bring in as concepts and ideas, I'm happy to like brainstorm and work with them on things. Yeah, so I'm always like happy to help with stuff. the next meetup is gonna be around building like this pumpkin chunkin thing, and I don't know what the people like the people that will attend, what their degree of knowledge of coding is and stuff. So it's always like across the board. So, but yeah, please feel free to reach out if you want to do a little more of that stuff. If you have questions, but there's this straightforward JavaScript there, and feel free to copy and paste. Right? There's no copyrights on anything. This is like I'm sharing because I'm carrying. Right? So that's how it works. Okay.
Awesome.
Back to you, Sam. I'm wrapping up my stuff. I'm gonna look at all the things that you guys have to show.
This is great. And everybody, I shared Roland's A-Frame NYC meetup early in the class, so please do join that. And I see Jihoon is knocked out here. I'm taking a screenshot. But we're meeting here next Friday for everyone who wants to take their work to the next level. Tune into Roland's A-Frame meetup. Class, I finally cracked the GIF thing. There are a couple different ways we're doing things. One thing you'll notice though is that if you're combining different components, not all systems work with each other, right? Like physics works. AR for marker-based, and I know one of us even got image-based tracking going. Those work, but they work separate from each other. The physics doesn't work in AR. The systems are separate. So you'll have objects just fly straight through your camera. I think Roland taught us a lot. But what questions do you have for Roland? He's really an expert in the area, as you can see. And there aren't a lot, but you now know how you can do everything from looking at things to making them, to affecting them, to using controllers to click, to using your hands or your index and thumb to literally grab. Questions for Roland? And don't be shy, because he's kindly sharing his time. So please, let's all use it wisely.
There's one thing keep bothering me when doing this is, so when I was trying to like move things around in the inspector and then copy the code back to the editor, the coding, the thing, and then it always lost the position.
Yes, so you have to turn off the checkbox on live refresh. Turn off the in glitch in the settings. You can turn off the checkbox that does live updating, because when you are in inspector and move things around, as soon as you change a single line or a single element on your code screen, it refreshes your other thing. You lose all traction.
Oh.
So make sure you turn that off.
Okay.
So you always manually refresh whenever you're ready. That's definitely something that's a real pain in the butt.
It's this one, class. This is why you should really follow. You have to follow along in class, because some of us are like barely doing what we demo in class. And I know today was like extra because it's the last portion of WebVR, but some of you aren't following along, so we're not getting to what we created in class, even though you could just copy it. So this refresh app on changes shows how, if we have something like, and I just copied this portion from Roland right here. If we change, like, where are we? Let's take a sphere, right? This sphere has a radius of 2.25. I increased the radius of the sphere, the app didn't reload. If you check refresh app on changes, when you change any value, then the site reloads, right? So if you're opening it in a new tab and you go to the inspector, but you change the radius of, you change any value, then you're gonna lose everything that you were doing on the inspector. So check on physics. Other questions? Yes, we've done physics. Turn on and off refresh app on changes. Further questions?
Is it possible to build this in like your headset without doing any coding?
Video streaming?
I mean, I guess that's what you call it. So like, you know how we have like that little A-frame set? Is there, let's say I bought the headset is it possible for me to make it in the headset without doing any coding?
Yes.
You mean, are you talking about like a sketch style kind of like building experience? Or what do you exactly mean this? What is this?
Put in the
Okay.
in the headset, like quilted, like that sketching drawing.
The answer is yes and no. Kyle, if you're asking, can you make an A-frame? Can you make a 3D scene in VR? Yes, right? You can go into A-frame. You can move things around, right? You could even use Super Medium. It's an app by A-frame, by the team that maintains A-frame. And it's like when Roland said Google Blocks or blocks.google.com, that's a VR drawing system that you can create objects that you can upload into Poly, right? So this is just a web page. So this is something that you should figure out how to integrate into your scene, right? Now there are other tools like Microsoft Maquette, and there are other ones like Tovi and all those different ones that we see at the hackathon, Roland, but not all of these enable you to code or add logic, right? This is at the app level on Windows devices or Windows headsets. And then there's one last one, Oculus Horizons, right? Oculus Horizon, it enables you to add logic to these experiences. This one's in beta right now, but these are things from like web, right, to Windows to beta. But Roland, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I sent you. I shared the link. So Super Medium built Supercraft, which is basically building A-frame scenes in VR. So that's basically like tilt brush, but not. It's basically building A-frame with primitives and blocks. Yeah, I mean, it's always nice to like build something in the medium that you're in. I think it's great for concepts, but it is never production ready ever. So you can do drafts and concepts in VR, but in the end, you might have to export it as a GLTF and then import it and then recreate the entire thing in A-frame again or in another software. Because for prototyping, it might work, but like there's a lot of junk and unnecessary stuff that gets created that just weighs super heavy eventually on the overall performance of your experience. And if you're like, I like to build things with simple blocks and shapes first, understand my environment, the space I'm taking up and the things that are in reach or are far away and like the proportions of things. And then I start with flat textures and then I build in models. So going in there and creating wild models like Quilt or whatever is more an artistic kind of interpretation, but it's not really functional. It is not really helping you scale up what you want to build in the first place, right? So you want to always be in control of what you're building, and then have maybe several low poly, low resolution variations of it down the line, and go like create a kind of a production pipeline that goes from like concept to low fidelity prototype to high fidelity prototype to real production level kind of thing, and then pump up performance and maybe build a case for making a Unity or Unreal app out of it if needed. So, but at least that's how I teach my class with my flow. And the reason for that is because you need to really understand proprioception and the actual affordances and the dimensions in different kind of media. It's very different on desktop as it is in a VR headset. Things change in perspective, and it's really important to like not go wild in the bells and whistles and the small things, but really understand like, and you can load in interfaces as 2D compositions and wrap them around you, or like make them on a curved display, or like put them on planes in front of you, just to understand is this thing readable? Does that make sense? And it's very low level, fast, iterative kind of prototyping that you directly can link in your Photoshop files and rapidly iterate before you even go into a VR space and and mess around with details, right? So that's my take on it. But you know, like people create differently, so I don't want to like dictate how things should work. You know.
Kyle, why do you
Thank you.
ask?
Trying to find an easier way to get around coding.
Yeah, there are a lot of different tools, right? There are a ton of tools. I recommend you check them all out. I think it's most important to view experiences in VR. But yeah, Kyle's concept was like Photoshop in a head-mounted display, but it's flat. I think you need to go volumetric. Roland, do you know of a component that lets you paint in A-frame? I'm sure I've seen some. Or draw or model.
Yeah, I mean, Frame VR already started doing that. They have a whiteboarding kind of part of it. So if you wanted to go on Frame VR,
we saw one at
framevr.io.
We saw one
It's
at
based on
MIT
A-frame.
Hackathon. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about A
So
Painter?
these are source. Yeah.
Oh, you got to
A-Painter
enable
is tilt
Chrome
brush.
flags. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you could bring tilt brush into
A-Painter,
yours.
Tilt brush. You can export tilt brush as GLTFs and bring in an A-frame. No problem. You know, so you can use Quilt. I mean, it's a performance question, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, if you're worried about interfaces and text and stuff like that, there is no better way than creating PNGs and placing it on planes in a simple A-frame scene, because none of these VR creation tools are precise enough to really like do the fine tuning for readability, right? They're not. They're just
very true. Microsoft
they're
Maquette,
very,
which we think is good, it's really jittery. Not even jittery. It's very clumsy. You don't have the fine grained control that you do of like our keyboard and our mouse, right? You have so much input with all your fingers. Even in the experimental ones, you still only get lobster claws, you know?
yeah, it's not precise enough. It's really rough. So, and it's meant to be rough, right? That's fine, you know.
Thank you.
Sure. Hey,
but
everybody,
don't despair, because this is really like, it's not as crazy and difficult as it looks like, you know. It's really not. I've got a lot of artists in my meetup that do creative things, and they get around with it quite well. So they're not coders at all. I'm not an engineer and coder. I just do stuff, you know. So.
Hey, everybody, any last questions for Roland? Yes, again, gifts are going to have to wait. Look at the example I shared when I was following Roland, just like you should be following when you're in class. I added the GIF component so you can see how I did that. Any final questions for Roland?
Are you talking about the shader, the mayonnaise shader for GIF? What's the problem?
The mayonnaise shader. No problem. We have our script that we brought in, right? Just like we brought in, is this the one or scene 2? Just like we brought in our
yeah, I think it's
physics,
the right one.
Right? Yeah.
I think
it's a dash
it's
here.
rugged.
Just like we brought in our physics system, we have a script that brings in the mayonnaise GIF. We have our GIF that's an asset. And then on these boxes, right, we have a material, that shader, and that shader is a GIF where the source is the GIF file. Maybe I should change this to file, GIF file. Guys and girls, I have to call it a night. Any last question for Roland?
Well, thanks for your attention and your endurance. Thank you for encouraging me, like supporting my rants about code and supporting my behavior. And say like.
It's great to see how far you can take this. Everybody, for homework, link your scenes together, make them interactive, whether you look at things and they scale, change color, rotate, and bring in physics. I'll upload these videos tomorrow. We have a first half and a second half, and we'll get back to more in-depth critiques. If you received a grade on your web AR, you now learn some new tricks to make your web AR cooler. Physics might not work with web AR in the scenarios we've tried before, but there's a lot more that can, such as custom type or GIF shaders. Also, everybody's on the Discord, so collaborate there. Any final questions, or we're calling it a night? All right, stopping recording. Cool.